Everyone. The time is now 10 a.m. Welcome to the Brooklyn Advisory Council Outreach Update. I'm Christopher D. Greif, the chair of this committee of the Outreach Update. Hope everyone's doing well and hope everyone's enjoying their week. As a reminder to everyone, your microphone should be muted. And I'm going to remind everyone on housekeeping rules. We do have one added new rule. Because of hackers, you need to remind everyone to please, when you come into the meeting, please do not interrupt in the meeting. Microphones are the reason why they're muted. That's why we have a hand raise device, which is available in your station, as well as a camera if you want to use it, or the chat box. As a reminder, caption is available in your station right over there. The more button. The more button is available to be used for any before if you got your background behind you. That's your choice as well. If some of your friends are having trouble getting on, the meeting ID number is located as you see that on the left, in the box on the left. We'll give you the meeting ID number and merge you to the phone. Also, I remind to everyone as you enter the meeting, if you do not identify yourself and you show yourself as 2023 or scam 4, unfortunately, if you do not identify yourself, we will have to remove you because we might think you're a hacker. We do need to remind people, as the signs will say on the website and email, please, when you put your meeting ID number in, please put your name in. There is no need to rush when you're putting it in. The reasons why we have to be very, very careful. This is related to Ring Central, Zoom, or WebEx. Any meeting you go to, please always put your name in. Doesn't have to sometimes be a full name. It could be a quarter name. But if once we ask you to please put your name into the chat, it's also making sure that you are identifying yourself. So I will be reminding everyone in any meeting and any the subcommittees, the provide information, and transition committee will also be reminding you as well. So it's before I proceed, as a reminder to everyone, these are the housekeeping rules. Please follow these housekeeping rules by the rules that we follow and show the courtesy to anyone who is doing speaking or talking. It is very rude and we do not want anyone to interrupt. So as a reminder, please mute your microphone. And if you see this, questions, please raise your hand and always
Hello, Chris. What happened? Good morning, everybody. It's Deborah Greif. Hello, Chris. What happened? All right. We're having a little technical difficulties. This is Deborah Greif, the chairperson of the Brooklyn Family Support Service Advisory Council. Okay.
I'm here. It's just that someone had something. Someone came in with a virus, and I had to remove it.
Okay. So now let's go back.
I'm still here. And right now I'm gonna, as you know, systems are coming back online at this time. As a reminder to everyone, on the housekeeping rules, we remind everyone as you're coming in, please keep your microphones muted. Deborah Greif, who is the head chair of the Advisory Council. Advisory Council.
Yes, I am.
So therefore, I'm going to remind everyone.
If there's a problem, I will take over.
So at this moment in time, I'm going to time as we're getting systems coming back online.
I'm going to ask, we're going to do announcements first.
I'm going to ask everyone to, I know everyone will always ask, can we do announcements first? We are going to do announcements first today. So if anyone has announcements, please raise your hand at this time. So therefore, can proceed after this. I know Dolores Kahn is here. Dolores, if you're here, if you have an announcement, please unmute yourself. Dolores, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Doris Kahn, and I'm the Outreach Coordinator for New York State Institute on Disability. We're a family support agency, and we provide the following services. We provide evaluations for individuals who do not have Medicaid who wish to obtain OPWD eligibility. For more information, you can contact Elizabeth Sunshine at 917-699-6457, or you can email her esunshine@nysidinc.org. NYSID also provides crisis behavior management to families who live in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. And for more information, you can contact Juliet Hawkins at 917-524-4856, or you can email Juliet at jhawkins@nysidinc.org. NYSID also provides reimbursements for goods, services, and CAMP to individuals who reside in the 5 boroughs. You can contact Jackie Tribodi at 929-202-1115 for more information about reimbursement. Her email is jtripodi@nysidinc.org. NYSID also has tickets for venues for recreational outings for families residing in the Brooklyn, Bronx, and Queens and Staten Island. For more information about how to obtain these tickets, call Sarah Alton at 718-494-6457 or email her at salton@nysidinc.org. NYSID also provides free transportation for these outings for the families attending these outings. We have free transportation for medical appointments if you live in the Brooklyn, Bronx, and Staten Island. Please call John O'Grady at 917-747-9424 for more information about this service. Thank you. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you, Dolores, very much. Sandy.
Thank you, Doris. We appreciate it very much. I just want to add one thing added on. Chris, one moment. I want to add one thing in reference to reimbursement. Just want all the care managers and everyone to remember that family reimbursement and the programs from NYSID are for individuals who live at home with their families. Also, if they don't have a care coordinator, they still can get it as long as they have they're OPWD eligible. Thank you again, Doris. And now it's Sandy Napier. Thank you. You there, Sandy?
Yes, I am.
Go right ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Okay, I want to tell everyone that Adapt Community Network is having their next free webinar Thursday, May 11th from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. It's called How to Help Children Succeed in School Through Assistive Technology. And we're going to have a group of assistive technology professionals from the New York City Department of Education and our own Peter Pitaresi, who is Director of ADAPT Community Network TechWorks Department. They'll be our speakers, and Mandarin and Spanish interpretation will be provided. Registration is always required. To register, email familyconnect@adaptcommunitynetwork.org or call 718-436-7979, extension 704. Thanks, everyone.
Who is next for the announcements? Chris, can you see their names?
I just said it. I said Miss Angeli James. Her hand is up.
Okay.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Angelica James with Unique Care Community Services. We have open in all our programs, day hab, ComHab, in-home respite, after school, summer camp, holiday respite, and weekend respite. My information is in the chat. You can reach out to me via email at ajames@uniquecarenyc.org or on my cell, which is 347-784-4622. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next
hand up is VONSE.
We do not hear you or hearing you unmuting yourself. Fernez Bons, I can't even, these names are very hard to say. Requesting you, the hands up person, to please unmute yourself and please do your announcement because we do not hear you. Madam Chair, I'm having an issue with this one person that is not responding.
Okay. What's the person? All right. Are they in? Where did they raise their hand? All right. I see. I'll look.
Yeah, she's the.
Okay. Say the name again. Vera? Or who?
That's the name.
Vera Bonse? Okay, Vera Bonse. Okay, please unmute so we can hear your announcement. Thank you. You need to unmute. We can't hear you.
Or seeing you doing anything at this time.
Okay. Okay, one thing before we do, we acknowledge anybody else. I want everybody to understand. You're having trouble with your microphone. You're having trouble getting through. We understand. This is what I would appreciate you do. Put your information in the chat. That's one. Number two, by Friday, this Friday, the latest, you can email the advisory council, which is bfssac@yahoo.com. We will then put your information on the website on Saturday. So if you are having trouble, we understand. Please put, as I said, again, put in the chat and also email. This is for anybody who has updated information out. If you have want to let us know you have openings, it's very important you get it to us by this Friday to go in onto the advisory council's website. Thank you. All right. Let's see who
Yes,
else. Okay,
yes,
we're having trouble hearing.
yes, Dolores, I know that, but this
What?
microphone needs to be on. There are too many microphones on. And I do need to remind everyone, all microphones should be on right now. It's Derek Wright, the Vice Council, as well
What's wrong with
as
your mic, Christopher?
my microphone. It's because there's someone that's echoing my system.
Chris, you're going in and out.
And let
Okay.
me handle it. Thank you.
Okay,
Chris,
okay,
Chris, you're
guys,
not.
guys.
You're having problems. Your microphone is going in and out. Okay, do you want me to take
Okay,
over?
guys. What? No. This has got to stop right now. Someone is going on and off the microphones, and this is why I'm having issues. Only your microphone should be on, no one else's microphone. I am going to remind everyone, please mute your microphones. That's where I'm having issue. I repeat this again. Please mute your microphones. This is why I'm having microphone issues. As I remind you, 2 microphones should be only on, not 3 or 4. If we do 3 or 4, it will cause an echo in here. And right now I have to reboot my whole microphone setting on the other one because of that.
I'm going
Because
I'll take
now I have to
over.
refix my whole microphone over there. So I'm using my other laptop.
Okay, I am now going to be the main speaker at the moment. Okay, if you have anybody else has an announcement and can unmute, raise their hand, unmute, and I will call on you. I'm going to look at the participants here. Okay. I know that Sandy Napier did her announcement, as well as Doris Kahn and Anita from the that's great. Now, just put everything in the chat.
Then that's it. Then let's move on.
That's it. You're going in and out, Mr. Greif. You're going in and out. I think I should do for now. Right now, announcements are over. I thank you all again. This is a very important information that we want you to have. We want everybody. I want everybody to please understand this. I want for the Borough of Brooklyn only. This is from our Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso. His office has put out a community surveys that we will do a brief explanation. And now what I'm going to ask is Mr. Gray. Okay, as you see, it says Community Conversations, Brooklyn Comprehensive Plan. This is for spring 2023. Now, our new borough president is very has a lot of important plans, and he wants to include everyone, especially people with disabilities and seniors. We do have, I want everybody to know, there are 18 community boards that meet regularly. And we also work with all our local city governments. So with that, I am now going to ask Mr. Greif to please go to the next slide for me.
Before we do that, I do need to remind everyone about this presentation that we're doing as I'm fixing the PowerPoint right now. What we're talking about is in different categories. So as I'm reloading it back on right now, this presentation does help the community, not just for seniors, but people with disability, as well as the community that works with, we have to make sure these questionnaires, and there is a survey which I will explain in a little bit. So I'm going to remind you one. The survey is also on the website, and it will be re-added in again as an update of the survey will be going in. So I am going to ask everyone on these instructions today, as my PowerPoint is coming on again. And just to remind you guys, this is not my PowerPoint. This is the borough president system. So I'm guessing where the problem is going on. It's the borough president's PowerPoint. They need to update their technology, which I'm being honest right here. But before we proceed that, as Ms. Gripe mentioned, the categories, some categories, I want everyone to see some of the PowerPoints. I'm going to ask Ms. Gripe to read some of it at the same time as we are both going to work on this together. And I'm going to ask everyone, if you have questions or want to put your comments in about a certain category, you have two options. One, you could put your hand raised. Two, put your comments into the chat, because any comment you put in, it will go to the borough president's office as well. As you see some of this information, and Ms. Gripe, I'm going to ask you to read some of that, please.
Okay. Why is a comprehensive plan? Land use guidance from community stakeholders for Brooklyn Borough President's decisions and recommendations. Accountability and predictability for Borough President ULURP submissions based on the plan's recommendation. Critical data transparency so Brooklynites can make informed decisions about their borough. This is not a substitute for a New York City comprehensive plan. It is not rezoning, and it is not this is not complete yet. I will give you a brief explanation. Every community board, one of our main pieces are when someone wants to rebuild a house or fix it. It depends on which part of what street they're on. Are they on like a main street, like I'll say Avenue S as in Sam, or are they on a smaller street like East 28th Street? Will it affect the community? Will it affect your neighbors? So there are different zones. Like there will be zones for when you are on, like you have mixed use, which means, okay, let's see, for Fulton Street. And I'm going to go the whole length of Fulton Street. And more than 3 community boards have jurisdiction on Fulton Street in Brooklyn. You have some places where it's residential as well as businesses. Some you just have only businesses. So what this is, that wants to make sure that with the local city council and all the Brooklyn the Brooklyn Congressional District, all the elected officials. Okay, Miss Young, can you please mute? Thank you.
Ms. Gripe, I got it. Just continue, please.
Okay.
I got
As
that.
you see, we have to let city council know, as well as our borough budget priorities. We have to monitor and modify the delivery of city services, and then we are the conveyor and strategic communicator across Brooklyn. And this is for strategic planning for this borough, Brooklyn. Please go to the next slide. Can you get to the next slide, please, Mr. Bright?
Yes, I did. And right now, this is who are in engagement right now.
No,
As
we're
you
on the
see,
roll of the. Okay, the roll. Okay.
No. You already explained the role. Actually, you don't
Now,
need to
can
worry
we
about that
please
one.
go to the next one? I don't have.
That's what I'm going to, the
here we
engagement
go.
part.
All right, I will read this. Who is engaged?
I got this one. The engagement names, as you see here, some of them you might recognize, some you might not realize they do exist. So the reminder to everyone that there are different groups. Yes, you do see the both councils there because we've been working with the borough presidents, not just the one today, but the one past, from Adams to Marty Markowitz and Howard Golden. So, and before I continue, some of you who just came in, I have to remind you all that you're coming into the meeting. Please, you don't realize, but immediately you got to keep your microphones muted. And right now, the only microphone should be on right now is Deborah Greif or Christopher Greif, which is right now I'm on.
Okay,
So
Christopher, I want to give a brief explanation. These are just some of the groups that are engaged. Now, the reason why you see the Brooklyn DD Council as well as the Advisory Council, because you see, when a group home would come in, since we represent the community part of OPWDD, and we have been working with Borough Hall, they have said that we're part of the engaged because we're part of the community. And you see also you have the hospitals, there's many more groups, but you don't see them all. But everybody here, you're a citizen, you work here in Brooklyn, you are part of the population who's engaged. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
I'm going to say this. As you know, right now, we're up to phase 2. As you know today, as some of you have seen or not, maybe I mentioned this at the joint meeting. This is part of a puzzle that gathering feedback to the community, as we are all communities in different divisions: disability, seniors, and much more. Today, all your comments that you want to put in could be added into the chat, but I am going to remind everyone, all this information will be going to the borough president, and I will mention the town hall date, which will be later in the end of the PowerPoint. So I'm just going, as you see here, I'm not going to go to explain this whole thing because we'll be here until next year. I'm going to move on to the next part. Some of this, as you know, it's called public gallery stuff. We are going to be, as we're doing today, is part of it. But I am going to show this a little bit. As you see, guys, as Deborah mentioned, we're dealing with, not just community boards. We're not worrying about community boards, but these are example conditions reporting sample maps. And I'm going to say this: these sample maps does help out the community where we live, from Bay Ridge to Spring Creek, from Spring Creek to Greenpoint, from Greenpoint to downtown Brooklyn, and downtown Brooklyn to Coney Island. Everything.
Okay, and I also want to bring up a very important point. As you see, Brooklyn is broken up into 18 community boards. Now, right now, it doesn't matter which board you live in. They're going by, these are things that have been reported through census and other surveys, community boards when we've had meetings. As you see, race and ethnicity, housing cost burden, renters, displacement risks. So this is just the tip. Please go to the next one. As you see, the adult asthma.
As I'm switching to different categories, maps, it's showing what areas that needs help in different categories. So if I explain this, maps will be here till next year. But
I can do a brief explanation.
No. Let's just move on. We're getting to the categories. Let me stick with the 7 categories. And before we move on, someone's microphone is on and it's being I heard echoing noise, so I'm checking before we proceed. Okay, just yours. As you see here, folks, these are the 7 categories. And this is how we're going to do it. Deborah's going to read the questions to you guys, and then there are certain category questions we're going to ask you. Once you see the picture of the hand raise or the chat, that's when we're going to ask you to please answer some questions. Environmental, healthcare, acting living, that's part of acting living, could be related to the housing, which don't ask me how these categories came together. I did not make these. Community service, housing, jobs, and just note this could be for people with disabilities, and accessibility planning.
Okay, I'm going to explain. These are the information when all 18 community boards go to what's called a borough board meeting. That's the chairperson of the community board, the district manager. That whatever data is sent to them, and also the data they get from the hospitals that are in Brooklyn. And they also get surveys from community services, and you would be surprised also the sanitation department, environmental, but also another part is our accessibility. And that doesn't matter whether you have a disability or not, you still need to have safe access to be able to get on and off into to your street. You need to be able to walk safely on a sidewalk. When you have to get on and off a bus, you need to be at the bus stop. If it trains, we're trying to see that our subways have more elevators or ramps and ramps, not. So that's what some of these are. Okay, Chris, go to the next one, please.
Before we proceed, some people are coming in late. I had to remove one person because he's not identifying themselves. So if that person did definitely disappeared, I just caught a hacker. So I just want to be clear to everyone. Please be very careful. Let's move on.
Go ahead.
The first category is environmental conditions. Deborah, I'm going to ask you just to read some of the questions, not all of them, because we're not going to be here until next year.
Okay, don't worry. I can do this quick. As you know, we are exposed to different environmental, and we have a lot of toxic sites in the borough. So we have to check to see what we can do to make it better, because these actually, a lot of times when we get in with the environmental, it does cause a lot of times developmental disabilities or premature deaths. Okay, so you can go on to the next question. Okay. And
as you see this, guys, this is, related to a lot of these categories in, as Ms. Gripe just mentioned earlier, part of keeping the environmental is trees, high heat, certain things environmental, like how can we ease down the pollution, how to keep the community a little more cleaner and more safer. So environmental could be in that category as well. Ms. Gripe, please continue.
Okay, as you see, we also trying to make sure we have more trees. We have more than we need to have more. We also need to make sure that affects us. But no flooding. There's so many different things. Okay, iPhone. If this is Lori Rosenfeld, please.
Ms. Gripe, please continue. I said before, anyone comes in, I will handle that.
I got it. Okay. As you see, we are trying to improve the outdoor air quality. Yes, trees, they do help. But also because we have to make sure that we have the funding so they can also build accessible parks, as well as making sure that when we have high heat, we have places that can help us cool naturally. Can we go to the next one?
1 second. Thank you. I got that. Okay, as I'm going to move on, some of these, just to let everyone know, because this is also related to explaining how to keep not just cooling centers, but during school seasons, how to keep the temperature for a student in a cool temperature. We've been seeing lately from the last following mayor, not this mayor, and the previous mayor, that there was been a lot of students couldn't handle the heat. A lot of them were a lot of heat stroke related, dehydration levels. So this is something that we definitely need to, put this in as well. And supporting the borough-wide, everything else in this, as you see all these questions here from 1 to 6.
And also they want to try to also use solar energy, because you'd be surprised, the solar energy panels can keep the roof of the top floors cooler, because they deflect the sun from going onto the roof. Let's go to the next one, please.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to move a little quicker, so I'm just going to say some of these questions are some of the same. So I'm just going to do the getting ready to these categories of discussions. This is the time we should be discussing. I'm going to remind everyone, if you have questions about this, please raise your hand or please put them into the chat. But I'm going to ask Deborah to read these categories.
All right.
Go ahead. First one.
The first one is, do these goals adequately address existing conditions? This is not what I think. This is what you think. Are any of the recommendations?
Let's just get to the question. Don't explain what you're saying until the end. Let's just go that way.
Are any of the recommendations surprising, compelling? Why or why not? This is up to you. What you think. Next one. How can we add more specificity? What can make the goals more tangible? This is something you really, really need to let them know. because we need to make sure these goals can go through and be worked on. Okay, next one is, how is your work addressing these goals? I mean, we are advocacy, but also what services or organizing, whatever is you feel we need more help with, we have to let the borough president know. Go, next. Hello, next one. What are the potential challenges to implementing these goals? Quick example. When you tell them to fix the sidewalks or repave the street, not just saying you need to explain why it'll be safer, especially you want to be able to get on, you want a better petty ramp to go on and off the sidewalk, as well as you want to make sure that after it rains, there's no pools of water lying around. So this is something you need to really explain what can they do to fix this. Who needs to be involved to the equitably addressing these goals? This is your city agencies, your elected officials, your local community boards, and we as groups can address this and let them, the borough president, as well as these agencies and officials, know what help we need. Next one.
Now we're up to questions. This is the time, everyone, to ask your questions and your comments. So we do have a hand raise up, which I want to thank you. Madam Chair, can you say her name, please? Vera.
Hold on one second. Okay.
Because her name is very hard to say.
Vera, hello, Vera.
Vera, you got to unmute yourself.
Can you please unmute?
There you go.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Now I can.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
So
Thank
my
you.
question, the hand raise, is this to tell you guys about what we our services that we provide, or just to ask specific questions about what you guys are presenting? That's all I want
Right.
to ask.
This is not okay. Let me explain. This has nothing to do with OPWDD. This is no matter what services your agency, OPW, any agency here. You live in you're serving customers that live in Brooklyn. So we need to know if your families want to go out for a walk and they can't because it's not safe. And I'm talking about not only talking about crime, I'm talking about the physical, your sidewalks. Like there are certain places that people with wheelchairs and walkers or canes who are visual impaired, they have the trouble walking because this sidewalk is broken up, the petty ramp is not put in correctly. There should be no lip. So when you go down off the sidewalk, it's easier. Also, another example, flooding. How many times have you seen right after it rains where you should be going down safely, you can't because it's a pound of water? The other thing is sanitation picking up your garbage correctly? Are your families being able to afford the rents? This is not OPWDD stuff. This is what locally you'll be involved with. Everybody, no matter what part of the city you live in. This is only for Brooklyn. So this has nothing to do with what services you're offering. It's what besides OPWD. What does your customers need who live in Brooklyn? Understand?
No, so I work with Excellent Home Care, so we do home care stuff. So just being curious that's why I was asking.
Well, that's very good to know, but you'll see also, is it hard for your families who when they have to go to the doctor? Has traffic interfered with them going? Like you help set them up example. I'm not saying if I'm using this example because I'm not breaking any HIPAA law. They have to go to the doctor. Now they live in, say, Bushwick. The doctor's in downtown Brooklyn. And are they physically able to get there? Is there a problem? Are they using accessory? Are they using a bus or train? Are they able to get to their doctor's appointment on time? If yes or no, that's similar things. That's affecting this community. Can they also, where they live, are they able to buy food that's healthy for them? Is sanitation, environmental protection, EPA, these are all agencies that are in the area. Are they keep cleaning up everything? Are they removing garbage timely? We also know about the vermin SAR because I hate saying the other word.
Let's
So
also think
that's
it
what
very,
it is.
yeah, yeah. But
That
let's
is,
also be very,
let me finish. This is an example. Also, how's your transportation in the area? How are the schools in the area? Are they accessible? How can your customers, your people you serve, can they get in and out of a local store, or are they blocked because they can't go up and down the stairs? Similar things. Are there any other questions in reference to this, or did you understand what I'm saying?
I'm fine. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And remember, everybody's
and I
voice counts.
and let me just add this, because I don't see anyone really taking this question. It looks like everyone's really, I'm just saying this straight out. Guys, we really need to take this seriously, because if we don't let the city know this about environmental, this could be related to asthma, as I mentioned. It can be related to any kind of health that a person has to smell more carbon dioxide, how to keep the sidewalks and streets cleaner. That is environmental. So I am going to ask you guys, what is your questions or comments do you want the borough president to know, or your future elected officials? So please put those questions into the chat. And if you have a question, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next category.
Okay.
So right now I'm going to move on. So technically, we really don't have anything about environmental. We can just mention that there is sidewalks, streets need to be more cleaning, more environmentally needs to be more safety for the community, but it depends where in the community where you live in.
And the other thing
So
also is, are you like example like, are you when you try to get also on and off a bus? Is is a bus able to pull into your actual bus stop? That is part of environmental, because that affects your safety. And if you're worried because you're afraid you'll get hit, that affects you because you're nervous and you're not happy. Also, do they have appropriate street furniture, which means, and no, it's not the MTA who does it, that's New York City DOT. Is the seats truly accessible, or people are sleeping in them or doing things to them they shouldn't, like throwing garbage, other things? So these things they need to know, because everybody has the right to live in a safe, clean environment, be able to get on and off the buses safely. Also, cars should not be parked in your bus stops. And that includes unless it's an emergency where police officers there's a crime being committed, that's okay when they're there. But otherwise, they're not supposed to be parked in.
yes, that is correct, Madam Chair. But I think right now, since no one really needs, let's move on to healthcare, because this comes into this. Let's move on.
All right, healthcare. This is a very important thing. How many places can we bring people with disabilities?
Hold on, Madam Chair. Hold on.
Hello, Stephanie, can you please mute? Thank you. Okay. Increase access to quality, affordable health care. Well, the first part's very easy to explain, but I want to add a few things. Do you know there are very few places females who use wheelchairs as mobility devices can safely go get a physical exam by a GYN because the rooms are not accessible? You see, we need to let the borough president's office know that we have a lot of problems because we have doctors and nurses and staff that are not always appropriately trained to work with our population and people with disabilities. And they need to remember that just because you have a developmental, or say you have mental illness or others, doesn't mean you should not be getting good, safe health care. Also, it's true, they need to lower the cost, but they also need to make sure the rooms are accessible. So when you have to be examined, your wheelchair can get into the room. And that includes also better dental care with the larger rooms for wheelchairs, walkers, canes to be in. What happens if the person needs to have an assistant in there that's with them to make sure They can handle being with the dentist because they're trained. Also, we need to have better mental health professionals that understand that just because they have a developmental disability, they should know that when you have developmental disabilities, very few individuals are cognitively high enough to understand what the doctor is saying or the therapist. And by saying, I can't talk to you because it's HIPAA, is not right. We need what's called the START programs more that deals with the whole families, and they meet with the families, they speak with the parents, or if the individual is in a group residence, they also see what's going on environmentally in the physical place where the person lives, they travel to or go to, or if they're at daycare or an adult, whichever, like Calm has. Okay.
Madam Chair, I think the one thing we need to focus on right now in this first question is discussing the areas of people having, there has been concerns of keeping the budget in.
Yes, where is that?
No. Let me finish and let me do this part. Thank you. In the healthcare issue, as you see right here, it says Office of Healthcare. The credit, right now, some people cannot afford or they don't know how to get health insurance. That is the one thing that's been brought up here on this question, and there's another question to it. We need to move on.
The other part is just as important.
Yeah. Yes.
You need to because this is also, you have to remove all barriers to the healthcare, whether it's also with money, it's also with, it's truly accessible. The staff is trained and knows how to work, and not saying, I can't deal with that. They have to learn. Everybody should get all Brooklynites should have access to affordable and accessible true health care. And we all need to know, and also another part, when we're admitted and we have special dietary needs, we need to have them really fix it, not go, well, we can't deal with it. No, not acceptable. Because if you don't eat correctly, you can't get well. Go to the next one. And now also we have a serious problem. It's been brought up. It was brought up when our borough president had his state of the borough address. Sadly, we have been losing a lot of women who die in childbirth and complications, and we need to work with them to make sure that everybody that we keep our women healthy and safe, and they get the right health care they need when they're pregnant, when they give birth, and for the rest of their life and their children. Okay. Okay, so go to the next one.
I did, and I'm just going to add this also. The one thing that we also need to be prepared for is not just crisis management issues, which we all know that already, but when younger individuals, and I say early intervention as well, when they're getting ready to go to school, there's got to be a pathway for keep the students more healthier, find out what goes on in the school with you as the mother or the father or the brother or sister. And right now, I'd like to know what is there a noise in the background or something? Oh, God. Oh, Madam Chair, that's you.
What noise? That was outside.
There's a noise.
That was from outside.
Let's be careful.
All right.
So I'm trying to say this. The system supports working. The only thing we need to remind the borough president, these information also needs to remind him that, yes, it's in schools, but it also has to be added for special ed students as well. But that's something that we need to hear from you guys as well. Let's move on to the next one. And now we're up to discussion time. It's the same questions as we said before. The goals, the conditions.
Are they adequately discussing the true needs? Are there any recommendations surprising, compelling? And how can we add more specificity? When can we make these goals more tangible? Does anybody have and how was your work addressing these goals? We know that we are advocating. We have advocated the DD Council, the Advisory Council, and every agency here. We have been advocating to make sure that our children and family are receiving the correct health care, physical care. I wish they would understand more about the individuals with different disabilities, developmental or others, what is truly needed, and not to like turn off. And also we need to stop worrying about labels, because a label is the one that gets you the actual service. It's what you do with the label and the service. If you want the right service, there's no shame in having that. And give a fast example. If you
So
broke your foot, you don't go to the breast doctor to take care of your foot. So we need to make sure. So anybody has any want to bring up anything? Do you have any
or
answers?
put it
What do
into
you feel?
or put it into the chat.
Please
So
put in the chat.
I'm gonna ask that some of the agencies who are here, these questions that have been mentioned, these relate to you as well. Like I know we have ACA, and I know Care Design was here. So so these questions related to you guys. Are you guys having difficulty getting certain health services for your individual? And I think this is a good time to bring these questions up, because how can we advocate to keep our younger children, including young adult individuals? How can we do that if we don't say something? So, and I know we have people here who are hiding from not mentioning things, which is important as well. Dolores Khan, do you have a question or a comment?
No, I don't.
ACA, Outreach Coordinator, do you have a question about this or a comment? I did not hear you.
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, we have two ACAs here. Hello, Jackie. Do you have any questions?
Good morning. No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, guys, I'm going to move on to our next category since no one else actually has a question about it. Acting living in the borough of Brooklyn.
Yeah, wonderful.
Let's keep your motions all to the side, please. It's
No,
duly
it's
noted.
wonderful because unfortunately the cycling program discriminates against people with disabilities because we don't have true accessible bicycles. And people who ride the bicycles don't know how to follow the actual rules.
Let's read the questions, please. Let's move on.
No, I'm letting everybody read. We're trying to get them to the strengthening Brooklyn's bicycle network based on New York City street plans. This is expand and increase access to city bikes, ensure ADA accessibility on all Brooklyn sidewalks, and that includes the streets too. Okay. Anybody wants to say anything?
We wait till the question to the end part. Let's not do that, please, changing the routine. Let's let everyone please make sure you're reading the transportation part of the acting living. It's not just public streets and public galleries, regulation space, but those can still be mentioned because today, we do need to remind our borough president and all the politicians the accessibility. So as a reminder you all, your comments, your questions are important to hear. And as you see, guys, advocating, supporting residents, parking permits, that could be for accessibility. The word I'm using, accessibility, because in New York City, they're trying to use the word accessibility, but in federal regulation, it's handicap, which that some people could get very sensitive. But I remind you that that's a federal law, that's something in the future we can always change. But this is some of the questions here. And one thing I think we all agreed on the bicycle, that they need a traffic light for them to remind them to learn to stop and then go and watch your pedestrians who are crossing the street. So let's remind that. Devoting to parking, that's like a suicide mission. As well as curb cuts, delivery trucks, everything in the community, gets double parking, even at bus stops. We all know that. And even with the trucks and certain vehicles that do have carbon dioxide smell, and I know sometimes it makes us go bleh on that. And as I said again, these are the questions, these are the things we need to hear from you guys. What do you want in your community in Brooklyn? What you want them to do? And how can we all advocate to keep the conditions like trucks, cars, vans on this? So these are the same comments here. How can we add more? How can we work addressing these goals? It's not just advocate groups. We need to remind our politicians as well, our city agencies, elected officials as well. So I'm going to ask these questions. I'm going to ask, does anyone has any questions about this? The bicycles, the safety in your community. As a reminder, please if you not want to speak about it, please put your comments into the chat. And therefore, that information can then make sure it's duly noted, and we make sure that the borough president hears this. Guys, this is also very important. We do need to hear your comments and questions into the chat. Deborah should not be the only one mentioning all this, or am I. We need your thoughts, your ideas. And as a Brooklynite, and doesn't matter if you're not from Brooklyn, your comments still count. Because this could be related not just to Brooklyn, it could be related to Manhattan, Queens, Bronx, or Staten Island, or the Long Island, or upstate. Some of these ideas could be working to help your community out. So does anyone have any questions about this? Deborah, do you have a question?
No. Don't want to be interrupted.
Okay, then I'll move on to the next category. Community services, community services. As you know that, and I know we have someone here, I know we have people who do work with the communities in your neighborhoods on this. As you know that it's not just schools we have to deal with, not just schools, but getting to how to work with the community, like behavioral health, submitting, how to work with your community, with if it's a group home or a day have program. How can we in the community we work together, which there are a lot of you guys there today. I've been doing that, going out on, the strolling in Bay Ridge, street events in Park Slope, Bay Ridge, Brighton Beach, Coney Island. A lot of you do attend those events, as well as when we used to have the outreach update at the libraries. How can we keep our community services on that? That is, one thing. And as you see, the support of small not-for-profit stuff, which, yes, we do need to worry about the small private, but we also need to know community services basing on organizations. It's not easy with funding. I know that it's very hard, but there are ways of getting everyone to know how to outreach out there in the community, to let them know how can we work together. Working with your community, with the NYPD, which we have the community council meetings, as Deborah mentioned, community boards before. Do I hear an echo or something? Just me. Okay. Some of these questions here, and I'm not going to read all these questions because some of them it's not related to community, but it's not just housing modeling. It's also how to keep your community safe, how to keep your community look beautiful, how to work with your community. And some of these questions I know look kind of like not just transferring network to college students or the campus, but schools, they have programs, a lot of this. It's not just higher education we need to worry about, it's educating the community to know the disability community, doesn't matter what type of disability, but how to work with that. And as I say it again, these questions, these goals we need to ask you guys is what goals you think the borough president should be working on these conditions, why or why not, and what can we make the goals more tanging, how to keep the community together. Service advocating organizations, all this is the same questions I mentioned before. So I'm going to ask this question to everyone. What do you want in your community to be upgraded to? Helen Reyes, I know you're here. What do you want in your community to be more upgrade? Okay. Jackie, what do you want in your community to be more upgrade?
Well, we all know that I live in Staten Island.
Yes.
So,
No, but
yeah, we're talking, Brooklyn and Staten Island are very different. One of the things that in a community, especially for individuals that have any type of mobility issues, and we all know that my son does have that, and Deborah mentioned it earlier, it's the cut curbs and, the access to, getting across the street, whether that be in Brooklyn or Staten Island. We find that that is one of our biggest hurdles. And in Staten Island, we have a lack of sidewalks. So this is Staten Island, but as far, I know this is the Brooklyn Council, and as you said, it'll go across the board. But the biggest piece that there's an issue is, accessibility when anybody has to cross the street.
So you definitely want, I will say this, because it's definitely related. It is like, it's not just in Brooklyn, but it's all areas. You want safer crosswalks and better traffic lights.
Right.
Am I correct?
And cut curbs, because,
Yeah.
you can have a curb, and if there's a little bit of a lip, you're not going to get anybody who has a wheelchair or walker to safely ascend or descend that sidewalk. It's just not safe. If I don't tell my son that there's a little bit of a lip to pick up his walker, he'll fall. If a person is in a wheelchair and it's not a wheelchair that's they go and there's that curb, that can get stuck. Even if you have a power chair that can go, some people don't have that. So if there is even the slightest type of lip, it is not a smooth transition and becomes a very serious safety issue.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And I agree with you 100% about that, because that's something that we, in anywhere you go, doesn't matter if you're in Brooklyn, any borough, the safety is crossing the street safely wherever you go is a major issue in citywide. Correct what I'm saying?
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie. Helen, I hear your mic is on, so talk to me. What do you want in your community to be more updated?
The public transportation safety, it's very, very difficult for our folks to navigate these streets. It's just really, really hard. And I take the city buses myself, and it's just very challenging, to say the least. A lot of barriers.
Helen, there is one question that, because we can use you as an example, but I'm not mentioning people's names. I'm just going to make sure these questions go in. You've been working very well, because you do attend the stroll events in Bay Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been working very well with the community in Bay Ridge. how is it doing very well since even
Well,
COVID and before COVID?
well, I would say Senator Guinardez and Councilmember Brannan have been very responsive to our needs, you know, but there's many layers even they have to go through. So, I mean, advocacy on the transportation piece has to be ongoing. We have to be like a bee buzzing in their ear constantly. Otherwise, they will forget about us.
And Helen, just to let you know, regarding transportation, that will be in our last category on accessibility. So that part I agree with you. So it is related to community and accessibility. So I definitely agree with you on that. But let me ask you this question. Do you want to see your community more active in that area? More active? Do you see more
Well,
community people working with you very well?
well, our guys are an example of what works in the community. We go to every event, um, but it would help if the public transportation was a little more stabilized. That would even
I
open
Mhm.
more the access to community.
Mhm. And all I'm gonna say is right now is that's something that that's why we have that bus redesign working on, and I will remind everyone that y- yeah, and there is a pop-up sessions. They've been going around. They were in Bay Ridge in the first one. We did have a lot of people did turn out, Helen, thanks to you and the
Yeah.
other agencies who are here today. And Jackie, some of your parents and Doors, some of your parents did attend the Bay Ridge. I thank you as well. We still have one coming up this Thursday, which I'll mention later on. And it's also available on our website. But I think what we're hearing today is not just transportation, but as you see, the community is changing. But I think there's one thing everyone's maybe realized: we need to make sure our community is safe. We definitely need to make one question that needs to come in: how to work with the community, with the NYPD, elected officials, which you already said, Helen, and as well as how to
Chris,
get how we can get the NYPD and the community making sure to keep the neighborhood even not just safe but stronger and keep the love and peace together.
Chris, can I respond to that?
Yes, you may.
Okay. What about programs on 3rd
Mhm.
Avenue? Because the weather was nice. We went to the local police precinct
Mhm.
and we had like coffee with the cops. The cops could, get to know our people, and our people can, because some people have fears and stuff around the policeman, you know? So we are in the community and we do hit the important things like the police officers. Make them have a dialogue back and forth, which I find is helpful on both sides.
And that's something I agree with you, Helen, very much. Thank you so much for bringing that up because it does show how we can continue working together on with the NYPD as well. And that's something that's really something that a lot of these questions and comments is important to hear because how can we let our lot your politicians but other politicians need to know this too. I definitely want to move on to our next questionnaires, but Helen, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Because
And our favorite is the night against crime. Our
I'm
guys
sorry,
love it.
I'm sorry, Helen. Can you repeat that again? Because we lost the last
Our
sentence.
folks, they love the night out against crime in
Mhm.
August.
Yes, and that's something that is something it's always good to go to, and I always encourage everyone to attend that. And that's something that we definitely need to remind the borough president that in the future, as well as that, National Night Out Against Crime is a way of getting the community together with not just the elected officials, but NYPD and other city and state agencies. But thank you, Helen, so much for bringing that up. And
Thank
I'm going to move on to our next question. I'm gonna, and I think we all know that housing is another concern we need to bring up. And Helen, I'm going to mute you for a second so I have no echoing because I got to make sure. Um, as Deborah's been mentioning at meetings about, the safety of health and affordable housing, and Deborah knows to these questions, these affordable houses that are being built in not just in Brooklyn but all areas. Deborah, can you read some of these questions here?
Fine. We have to require that besides developing new affording housing, especially in areas where housing productions have not kept pace, we require 100% true affordable housing because we're in the city subsidy, we need to support mission-driven and faith-based projects that have been able to get the different affordable housing. But we also have to make sure that all our housing is, when they built it, is truly accessible for whatever form of a disability any person has. So those are the questions.
And Deborah, you can also mention that in the zoning that
We
community
also
boards
have
does do.
to we have the zoning text amendment for eliminating parking requirements within a quarter mile of a subway or other regional rail services. That means before, and I will have to explain it. If you build an apartment, you're supposed to have, according to the current zoning text, you must have at least one parking space per tenant. So that's why you see many times they're trying to ask them not to. But you see, the one problem is that if they want to get around it, we need to make sure that all of our buses and trains, especially our trains and rail services, are truly accessible, and we have increased in accessible express buses too. Okay, go ahead.
And just to let one thing, there is a new zoning about this. If a building's being built near a train station, that owner can also get a special tax credit and can build a subway elevator. Or sometimes if the station is like on the Brighton line or the Dyer Avenue in the Bronx, they can also build a ramp with that as well. So that is something to check out as well. So that's one thing. Go ahead. Madam Chair?
Supportive
Go ahead,
transit
Madam Chair.
options.
Read the next question.
I'm here. Which one? 1, 2, or 3? We already discussed that.
Madam Chair, can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. My Wi-Fi is acting up. Can you please read that question?
Preserving and improving affordable and public housing. They want us to they support development of more supportive housing to help address the homelessness crisis, support full funding of capital repair needed in public housing, combat predatory real estate practices by ending the tax lien sale, create options for affordable housing preservation in properties with municipal debt, designate all of Brooklyn as a cease and desist zone, support tenants through continued support of the City Right to Counsel program, support zone reforms that facilitate complete electrified buildings with zero emissions. Okay? Do these goals adequately explain what we need, or are any of these recommendations compelling? Does anybody have any concerns want us to bring up anything? Or what are some potential challenges? And so these are the questions. Raise your hands. And if you're not sure, type it in the chat. Thank you. Nobody has? Okay. Well, one thing we can do, if anybody knows of people who are developers work in real estate, why don't you ask them if they're building homes or apartments right near subway stations, if they agree to make the station accessible, and it doesn't have to be an elevator. If it's possible to ramp the station, try, or do a combination of both. They may get major tax abatements, which will help them. But we also need
Yes.
so that's a very important thing. All 18 community boards voted for that because we're trying to figure any way we can get a fully accessible train system. And that also includes, since the Long Island Railroad has three stations, two stations are accessible, the third one is not, and we're still fighting to make sure
It will be.
It will be, but at the moment we're still advocating for it, but it takes time and funding because of the way it was configured and built so long ago.
So I'm going to ask, since anyone is meant to be hiding or shy, I'm going to ask ACS, because we have two ACS here. Do you guys have questions about housing issues? ACS? I mean, ACA?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Dolores Kahn, do you have a question about housing? Or Jackie?
Nope. Not at this time.
No, I don't.
Helen Reyes, do you have a question? So you guys
Ladies
are telling.
and gentlemen, that if you really don't have, or because it is a very intense questions that have been asked, you can also get this survey on the borough president's website as well as ours, and then read it and really look into it. I completely understand why not everybody can answer these because it's very intense. But whatever you feel like answering or asking, go for it. But if you can't, understood. Yes, Helen?
Yeah, so anyway, what I was saying, thank you for taking my comment. They are proposing building a multi high rise senior housing on extending Shore Hills in Bay Ridge,
Mm-hmm.
and it's right next to our group home. And the community is up in arms. We don't have accessible parking, and you know, we do depend a lot on the MTA transit. But this housing is good for certain people, and we see the importance. But at the same time, think about the effects of the present house.
Okay,
You
Helen, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do now. Find out what day they're going before the community board. Remember, the community board's an advisory. You also need to find out what day the Board of Standards and Appeals are meeting on this. The whole
Yeah.
community needs to put it, who are against it, need to put it in writing and not say like, okay, one thing you can say, one, it will interfere with the lighting, but the most important is the accessibility. So you need to
Right.
get this information to the chair of the community board, the district manager. You need to make sure also all your neighbors do that. Everybody does it. Or help get someone to help the individuals at the residence who will be affected. Why you need accessible, you need the accessible parking because you have individuals who have these forms of disabilities. You have to really hit them hard on what is for the disability community, how it's going to affect them. Also, it will put structural strain on the area because they said, "Oh, well, we need senior housing." Yeah, but you can even force them to lower it. When I mean lower in height, because a few times they wanted to build on a really narrow property in 15, and it was really not appropriate. And we were able to get the community board to turn it down. The two city council members that cover I think it's 2 or 3 of them did agree with us, and we did inform the borough president, and Board of Standards and Appeals did hear us. They were forced to lower it, but you do have a say. But remember something: if say the community board says, "Oh, well, we'll let it pass," that doesn't mean it's going to completely really go through. Everybody doesn't realize something. The community boards are advising their local elected officials what is going on in our community, what services are needed or not, what is working, what's not. And also to find out when is the Board of Standards and Appeals. And let me tell you something, when people show up to those meetings and with written testimony, they take that very seriously. And you can have Justin Brannon and Andrew Gurnars. Andrew Gurnars really would be very helpful because he understands, as well as his father, about how to advocate to get these. Tell everyone, do not get nasty to these developers. Be better than them. When you go in there and say why is this issue, instead of saying, "Oh, they're horrible people," no. It's what they plan to build is not working with the community. Did they come and meet with the community? Did they ask you what's needed? Did they say if it's going to interfere, what could they do to help you? Or could we make a few changes? If they didn't say
or a deal.
you have to go there and make sure at that community board meeting, and you let the chairperson know, and there is the chair of the zoning committee, that if they're required to, within a 50-foot radius, and all next door neighbors, they have to contact you in writing. And if they haven't, that's not good. And if you're having problems, you let the borough president's office know, but you also let the elected officials that are also, besides sitting there, who work with you, and that includes your Congress people, to tell them how it's affecting your community. Okay?
Thank you so much, Chair and Chairpersons. I appreciate
You're
your
welcome, my
comments.
dear.
Very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You do have time. It's no,
Yeah.
you see, also remember something. They may have to go for the community board because it's not as a right zoning. Now, I will tell you, if say this was built on Bay Ridge Avenue, then you may have an issue because it's a mixed zone. But you contact the elected officials and let them check for you and help you figure this out. And they see what they can do to assist you. Okay? That is one of their jobs. You're welcome.
You,
You're welcome. Okay? Is there any?
And right now, since that's been, thank you, Helen, for bringing that our attention. That's something that it's like in the housing area, which it's part of community, but it's also housing, is communication around your community. That's another thing that needs to be brought up. That's also like a housing issue and community issue. So that's that's actually, I realize that's a double header. Thank you, Helen. I'm going to move on to the next one, and I think everyone can definitely answer this question of lack of information is jobs. And I know Deborah definitely will be mentioning a question later on this. Increasing access, employing how to support pathways to well-paid jobs. And the one thing I'm going to say is some of these questions that they've been saying, to me, in my book, it's still incorrect because, as usual, the borough president still forgets there is a group called the Mayor's Office of People with Disability and Accessibility. And I know Deborah's going to mention something this in a few minutes. But as you see these questions here, and some of you might say,
All right,
or
let me
this
do a
is
fast
all.
explanation for this, okay? There are different types of jobs they would like to know. What could we use in our community? One big problem everybody forgets. When you have children or you are of a lower income and you're getting assistance, nobody explains what to do when you have to. You go to work and you start losing your extra benefits. And I'm saying this because I want everybody to be aware. It's not that I don't want anybody getting a job, but if the person has disabilities and receives medical, has Medicare, Medicaid, make sure you understand how to see that they are not going to lose their medical coverage. And we are advocating for everything to be raised. But the problem also is they forgot very important things. It's not just inclusion, or is it truly accessible? Because if there's no accessible transportation to the job site, what's the use of going to work? And if the inside building, like you go to the building, but you can't get in because it's not truly accessible, well, what are you going to do? So you're going to leave out all of a large potential amount of people who can work and want to work. In reference with summer youth employment program, they need to improve it, but they also need to help the families fill out the forms better and understand. And also, they don't really explain to children why you have to start with certain jobs is because you have to get your feet wet, so that when you finally get to work, you have some form of experience. That includes volunteering or being an apprentice, which is not the end of the world. So these are different things, and also includes jobs in our field, which nobody ever mentions. So so everybody, if you have questions or concerns, go right ahead. I'm 100% behind you. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? Okay. Everybody can put those in the chats. Let's go to the next. Is there any more questions by this survey? Christopher, hello. Is there any more?
Sorry, I gotta realize the microphone. My other microphone. Dolores Khan or Jackie or ACA, because there's two of you. Can you guys tell me if you have any questions, please?
No questions right now.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Thank you, ladies. ACA from Outreach Coordinator, as well as the other ACA. Do you have a question about this?
No question. Thank you, Christopher.
No problem. Reason I got to double check. Does anyone? Okay. I already Helen already wrote her in the chat, so it's duty noted. So I'm good on Helen.
Thank you, Helen. Okay.
Yeah, she had to run, but she did put something in about accessibility. I will read it later. The last one, I'm going to challenge all of you guys on this one because I don't want to hear that there's no question. There's got to be a question because I'm challenging all in this one.
As you see.
And let me do this one. This one, I got to do this one. This one, I got to put my feet on this. And hold your thought, I agree with you. You can back me up on the words. One thing I'm going to add that the borough president forgot, and I'm going to say this: increasing the numbers of accessibility subway stations, which we are getting. But as I remind you, that borough president in the city does not really have a say. It has to still go to the state level, because of the former mayor, not this mayor, the former mayor, messed up everything. One thing that we do have in the MTA is called Achieve Accessibility, and it's called the System-Wide Accessibility. As you know, I'm the active member for that, as well as Long Island Railroad and Metro North. MTA stations improving to complete with the ADA, which is accessibility, which some stations are getting a little more updated. And I know, Jackie, in Staten Island and everyone in Staten Island and other boroughs, there are still issues there. I definitely can understand that. And I hope those questions you guys please mention it today on here when I mention. The second thing is Brooklyn's my favorite one. I know Jackie says this. Jackie, hold that thought, because I know you're going to say it to me again, because I triple dog dare you. Brooklyn sidewalks are I'm going to say the one they say are, I'm going to say need ADA accessible. Means it's got to be flat, it's got to be easy, because there are times those things could be chewed up or break apart. That's something that we need to let DOT know. And Edmund, who's the DOT accessibility representative, who was at our meeting a few months ago, did say if you see something, take a picture, send it to him. His information is on our website as well. But ADA design limiting in all public projects, which I don't understand where they're getting that question. But anything you see that needs to be more ADA accessible.
A public project means that if they're building new buildings that are formed by the city, state, or feds, they have to really follow not a small percentage of the ADA, but really 100%. That's what you have to push everybody in. Okay, so that's a very important thing. Also, the other piece I brought up before about with environmental, which affects accessibility. If you try to get on and off a sidewalk through a curb cut that's flooded, it is not really healthy or safe for the person with disability. We don't know what was in that water. So that's another thing. Bus stops need to be where the bus driver can pull in, and that includes also accessorize to come in and get us. We need to force the borough president. He needs to make sure that all hospitals in Brooklyn have at least 5. Let's make it higher. The higher you go, then you get more. Minimum. However big they are, like example, Kings County, on each side in all their more important buildings, they have to have accessorized bus stops. That's separate from the bus. They can come in to get the person to put them on the accessory instead of us running around looking for them. So since it's a very large complex, that means downstate and then also around Kingsbrook and there were a lot of hospitals nearby. They need to have more than 5 accessorized stops. The same thing with Coney Island Hospital, now Brooklyn South. Even those 2 little hospitals on Kings Highway, Interfaith on Atlantic Avenue, Brooklyn Hospital, Maimonides, St. Vincent's and Bay Ridge, they need to have more than one accessorized stop that is not, and nobody's allowed to park in there. And if they do, they should be ticketed, because it is really against the law, and it's not fair to us people who have to come. And also they need to have, for all the dialysis units, we need to have accessorite, as well as the medical vans to be able to discharge and take their passengers on and off. And that's also true for all nursing home facilities, residential group homes, senior centers and homes. So we have a lot to push to our borough president and our local officials in Brooklyn, and especially we need to put pressure on New York City DOT, especially the Brooklyn parts. Anybody have any questions or concerns or disagree with?
I'm gonna start with Jackie.
Well, if we're going to talk about accessibility, obviously, again, I live in Staten Island, so I'm going to tell you our biggest hurdle is that 90% of our Staten Island railroad stations are not accessible. I think there are only 3 barrier-free accessibility stations. Again, don't quote me Staten Island, we do a lot of driving, but from what I understand, there are the only three that are accessible, which is at St. George, Great Kills, and in Tottenville. So one of the main things is to make sure that get all of these stations accessible for individuals that have any type of ambulatory issue, whether it be a person with a developmental disability or a senior citizen for that matter. And the other piece that we had when we talk about sidewalks, Staten Island is still notorious for having, streets where there are no sidewalks. There are bus stops that are literally on a main street, so that doesn't have even a sidewalk to get to that bus stop. So those are issues in our borough. But again, keeping in mind the Brooklyn stations, again, making sure that we have accessibility for everybody. Ambulatory is a big deal for me. It strikes home with my son, but other individuals that we serve. Keeping in mind that NYSED has a transportation program and a contract, we are not accessoride, and we want to make sure that people understand that our transportation is door to door. But if there isn't a place where our car could drop somebody off and it's a safety issue, that's something else to keep in mind, like what Deborah was making a point of.
Thank you, Jackie. And yes, I know about those sidewalks in Staten Island. I'd be terrified to walk in them after the rain. It would be mud. But Jackie, I just want you to know, surprisingly, we do have places that have sidewalks in Brooklyn that are really not sidewalks. And they've been so broken up and damaged that it's safer to walk in the actual street where the cars are.
And too, you'll find, and what I have learned in downtown Brooklyn is that a lot of officials park on the sidewalks in certain areas.
True.
So keep that in mind, that whenever we've gone downtown to do something, every once in a while you're going to get cars parked literally on the sidewalk, and that you don't have access that way either. So keep that,
I
can't tell
agree.
you specifics right now, but I can tell you I've been there, done that, seen it.
And Jackie, this is Chris. 1 second, Madam Chair. Just to let you know, Jackie, you did Arthur Kill Road Station in Tottenville, which you already said, Great Kills, Douglas Hills, and St. George. You have 4 elevators, and now you're getting another one being built right now in New Dorp. I can't even say it. So
It's New Dorp. New Dorp is a very big intersection. It's a very high traffic area.
And guess what? You're getting, and as we speak right now, they're starting to build another accessible station there. So just letting you know that the newer list for accessibility is on the list. And I think there's another station that's going to be soon starting building. But as a reminder to everyone, to build a station, to rebuild and get an elevator, we have to do a whole reconstruction of a station to make sure it's not just the elevator or the ramp, but getting on and off the train has to be ADA safe and easy to get on and off. That's why on certain train platforms, in the older stations, they have part of the middle of the platform is called a hump. The hump gives you a chance to get on between car 6 or car 5 where the conductor is. It's supposed to be even, and I say the word supposed to be, but if you see that it does not work, that's where we need everyone's eyes and ears to let us know. If you don't let us know, that's where we have the issue. And that's another reason we need to make sure that it doesn't matter what borough you're in, this information still needs to be brought to attention. And thank you, Jackie, for bringing that up as well about elected officials and their cars parking on sidewalks, because I definitely agree with you. And there is a concern about that as well. And just let everyone know, we still have the Brooklyn redesign still going on. So that's something that still will continue on that. Dolores Kahn, do you have a question about accessibility?
I have nothing to add right now, Chris. Thank you.
Nothing. I'm surprised. Ms. James, do you have anything?
No, I don't. Not right now. Thank you.
And Miss, I'm going to say Bonse. Do you have any? And just letting to remind everyone, if you
No,
guys,
I don't have any. Thank you.
okay, just making sure, because this is the last question. This is the last question, so I just want to make it very clear to everyone. These questions about accessibility is very important, because not just MTA we have to bring this up to, but DOT and certain buildings that have to be truly accessible as well. Yes, transportation is one, but a lot of ADA accessibility, as we mentioned about the zoning part, if a new building's being built, they could add an elevator or a ramp, God willing, to be ADA accessible. This is only related to the 5 boroughs. There is a discussion to talk about this in Long Island and going up north, upstate. But some stations upstate already are ADA accessible. So just to let everyone know. Since this is the last question here, then I'm going to click on to our next thing, is to remind everyone, the borough president will have a town hall about this. As a reminder, I put into the chat the survey on this. And just to remind everyone, this is a survey that you can share to everyone. The survey is available on our website. As a remind you that you have plenty of time to please do the survey, put your comments in, and do what you got to do with them. It doesn't matter which borough you're from, but something they need to look at. Any ideas still needs to be put in as well. And just to remind everyone, since we had all these questions and all these questionnaires in there, anyone has any additional questions they think should be going in or should be brought to the borough president's attention, as well as the other elected officials, because they do watch this video as well. Come on, guys, don't be shy. Okay, now I did do announcements earlier because it would be easier, because I know some people like to run away faster than a steel bullet and in tall buildings in a single bound. If you have any announcements, you could please send them to me, or you could put them into the chat. I will copy and paste it onto the website by Saturday. If you have any events that are coming up or trainings, please, as a remind you, to please make sure that you email us by this Friday. Does anyone else have anything they want to say or want to add a comment to your announcements before we end? Madam Chair, do you want to say anything before we end?
No, I just thank everybody for listening. And I do want everybody to know that you can fill out the survey. You don't have to live in Brooklyn. You have interest because you serve individuals as an advocacy agencies to see that they're living in better conditions in this borough. So please take the surveys, do it, and I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, since no one else has any questions about this, I'm going to remind you that next week is the Provider Information Committee. We will be discussing Medicaid. We will have a speaker for that, which is the information has been sent out, and it will be remind you again to please try to attend. And I also remind to some people who had trouble getting on, please check your Wi-Fi systems, and please make sure that your laptops, your computers are up to date, because remind you, as I said this earlier, some of you came in late. We've been reporting of hackers coming in, and if you don't identify yourselves, you cannot really enter the meetings, because we've been hearing that hacker levels are up by 89%. So I am going to remind everyone to please be careful when you're try to enter, because you need to check sometimes your filter areas. Make sure your systems are clean and up to date. Some computers that people put on earlier this meeting, did not realize that their computer was not up to date, and some of these systems that people have, like Windows 6 or Windows 7, they will not work anymore. And they don't realize that if you don't check your virus protection, make sure your monthly updates are updated. Please make sure you do that. And I'm just reminding everyone, because this is an advice to everyone. Please be careful. Please be safe out there. And that can go right to your cell phone as well. Please be careful. On behalf of the Brooklyn Advisory Council, Outreach Committee, I want to thank everyone who had their comments, their questions, and I remind you, visit our website. If you have any service openings, please put that into the email as well. I want to thank everyone who came today, and please have a wonderful day. Enjoy the day and enjoy the beautiful weather. Thank you, everyone. See you all next week. Bye for now.
Bye.